So we use a lot of resources, but then what happens to those resources when we're done with them? Maybe we throw them away and they go to a landfill like we see in this picture. Maybe we donate items. Maybe we recycle different things. And all of those ways are considered waste. A lot of people think of waste as landfill or waste as trash, but really waste is anything that we use and then have to get rid of something. And that's what we're going to explore more in this lecture. We've learned a lot about resources and the things that humans use, but what happens to them when we're done using them? So let's talk about the United States and about the waste that we generate, just the things we have to get rid of. In the US, we have 262 million tons of trash a year. Keep in mind the US population is 300 million. So, yeah, we generate more trash than we have, or more pounds of trash than we have people, which is kind of crazy. We nearly generate more tons of trash than we do people. And you can see a majority of that waste is paper. Now this is showing, again, everything thrown away. This is not separated by recycling or composting, etc. If we divide this number by the number of people that are in the United States, this equates to about 4.5 pounds of trash that's generated per person per day. Per day. If we were to say per person per year, let's take this 4.5 times it by 365. I don't know what that number is, but I'm pretty sure that's actually right around a ton of trash. Nearly 2,000 pounds of trash, which is crazy. Right? That's unnecessary. That's not good. And this is also the highest in the world. So other countries that have bigger populations, other countries that have bigger areas, other countries that have a lot of resources, we in the United States are the worst offender when it comes to the amount of trash that we are producing in a day. However, on the positive note, looking at these 262 million tons, about 35% of that waste is recycled or composted. This number could be higher. We'll talk about why in just a moment. But it is nice to know that every year this number is increasing. This percentage is increasing, which is good. We're becoming more conscientious about where we put our waste. But let's talk about that, though, about being recycled versus being composted. So my question to you, looking at this pie chart, is how much could be recycled and could be composted based on that product category? So I'm going to start with paper. I'm going to put a little R next to it, meaning it could be recycled. Glass could be recycled. Metals, they can be recycled. Most plastics can be recycled. We're just going to put recycling because most of them can be. Rubber, leather, and textiles, these technically can be recycled, but it's very rare to find places that will take them back for recycling. So I am just going to put this as trash. Wood can be composted. Yard trimmings can be composted. Food can be composted. Other, because I have no idea what other entails, I'm going to say that's trash. So if we look at this pie chart, we're going to say 3.6 plus 9.3, which is 12.9, we'll say 13. 13% of all of our trash should be thrown away, which means 87% of our waste can be recycled or be composted. 87%. And we're at good old 35%. So although this number is increasing, it is nowhere near where it should be. We should be at 87%. Hell, we should be at 80%. But we're not. We're getting there, but we're not there yet. We're nowhere close yet. So just kind of keep that in mind. Be conscientious that the stuff that we're throwing away probably has a better place that it can go. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some commonly thrown away items and where those products should be going. And then we're going to talk about them in the context of Montgomery County, because different counties, different states, different countries have different ways of disposing their waste. But most of you guys probably live in Montgomery County, so I want to make this personal to Montgomery County. But do know that a lot of these are true for everywhere in the States. So let's go ahead and we're going to start off with a banana peel, right? You ate a banana, you've got this peel left. If you're walking outside, maybe just kind of throw it outside. And that's kind of the right idea. So our banana peels, you can compost. Now the way you compost is going to be very dependent, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So compost, in the most simplest of terms, is taking things that more or less came directly from Earth and putting them back into Earth. There's a different kind of compost, which is kind of cool, called Verma Compost. Verma Compost is still putting in items that came from the Earth back to the Earth, but then also adding worms to the mix. Composting worms. These worms are really good at just eating dead stuff. And if any of you guys happen to see me, come visit me at the lab because we actually have a Verma Compost bin, and it's incredible how quickly they go through food. Now, composting can happen at two different scales. The scale that most people think of is your at-home composting. You have a compost bin, you have a compost pile. There's also commercial composting, which we'll talk about on the next slide. So let's say you're composting at home. If you're composting at home, you might have a bin like this. You might have a plastic bin that maybe you keep inside. The Verma compost I have in the lab is a plastic bin that's kept inside. And for this type of composting, it's really important that you don't put meat or dairy products in your bin. You can put fruit scraps, vegetable scraps, eggshells, coffee grounds, newspaper, soil, leaves, grass, a lot of these different things. But even though meat and dairy came pretty close from Earth, the thing is, those types of products take a little bit longer to decompose. And if this is a bin in your backyard and it's taking a while to decompose, it usually starts smelling, and it usually attracts pests, it attracts rodents, it attracts raccoons, things like that. So although technically you could compost these at home, in every book, in every resource, on every website, on every blog, it will tell you do not compost these at home, just because all the downsides far exceed the benefits. Also, products that say they are compostable. Maybe you have a compostable plate or a compostable cutlery. Those are not compostable at home. Those require a much bigger process. They require higher heats. They require a lot more processing, so to speak, to actually compost. And your at-home composter will not do it. It will remain that paper plate for years. But you're like, well, if it says it's compostable, but I can't compost it, what am I supposed to do with it? Here in Montgomery County, you can do a couple things. So let's talk about commercial composting. So commercial composting is a huge operation, and take a look at this picture here. This is that huge operation. You see machinery, a couple different machineries. You see huge piles of compost. This would be referred to as commercial composting. Because they're using machinery, because it's typically out in the open, they're getting a lot more heat, this type of processing can handle that meat. It can handle dairy. It can break down those compostable products. So you can't do it at home, but you can do it commercially. Unfortunately, in Montgomery County, we only have commercial composting for just yard waste. If you guys have a yard, you might be familiar with this. You can get those big brown paper bags, and that's where you can put leaves and branches and things like that. But you can't put anything else in there. And then the county comes and picks it up and takes it to a facility like the one in this picture. However, what's kind of cool is that if you're familiar with Tacoma Park, they actually have a citywide composting system. Not only do you put your recycling bin out, not only do you put your trash bin out, but you also put your compost bin out, and the county picks it up, Tacoma Park picks it up, and they have their own commercial composting facility. This is just in pilot mode right now. They want to see how viable it is because someone's got to pay for it, right? So they're seeing if they can generate enough money to make this a bigger program throughout the county. So if you don't live in Tacoma Park, You only can do your yard waste. You can't put foods or anything in there. However, something you could do if you're kind of passionate about this, if you're like, well, I want to get rid of these dairy products. I want to purchase more compostable products, but I want to compost them. There are private companies in Montgomery County that you sign up for their service. You typically pay a monthly fee, and then they come out and pick up your compost typically once a week. So the two companies, at least that I'm most familiar with, are the Compost Crew and Veteran Compost. So take a look at their websites. If this is something you and or your family are interested in, you can be part of these programs. So really cool programs in order to get that composting done that maybe you couldn't do otherwise. So that's all I've got about composting.